For the WRAM Noon Ag Hour, I'm Kaylee Foster, and I am joined with Trent Ford. He is the Illinois State Climatologist. Trent, how's it going today?
Pretty good. Enjoying a mild May weather day.
Yes, hard to believe we're already halfway through May.
Yeah, it's crazy. It'd be climatological summer pretty soon once June starts.
So I never really understood. I always hear about climatological, you know, you could say it.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. I have good practice with it. Climatological seasons. Yeah, so I mean, sometimes we think about like the kind of celestial seasons where we have June 21st, the summer solstice begins summer, but weather doesn't actually at all follow that kind of pattern. So we kind of group months together to get a better idea of when our warmest, when our coldest times is, what months tend to have the similar types of weather. So that's where climatological seasons come in. And so climatological summer, for example, begins June 1st, runs through August 31st, then we go into fall, winter. So climatological spring is March, April, and May put together. And generally speaking, for temperature, December, January, February, which is winter, is the coldest time of the year all across the state. Summer, June, July, August, those are the warmest 3 months of the year. So it follows pretty well.
Okay. So as we were saying, we wrapped up April and we're already halfway through May. You had your April summary that came out the beginning of May. What did we see in April? I know it was pretty crazy weather. We kept saying it all the last
Yeah.
month and a half. So how did that compare to past years?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I think like with April especially, and to a lesser extent March and May, but by the time we reach the next April, we've kind of forgotten about what the past April has been. And so every time we have an April like what we did this year, which is really variable as far as temperature from day to day and from week to week, we sort of surprised by it. But in reality, that's April in Illinois. We have it's a transition month between warmer, more consistent day to day summers. So our summertime temperatures are not only warmer, of course, but they're more consistent. Day after day is kind of the same with July. In the wintertime, it's a lot more variable. And so what ends up happening is that in April, we're transitioning and we get a kind of under the influence of both the colder air from the north and the warmer air coming up from the south. And sometimes they battle each other. And so, I'll hear from folks when we get, for example, parts of Chicago saw 80-degree temperatures one day and then snow the next day. And everybody's like, what in the world? And it's like, yeah, that's April. So that's kind of what we saw this last month was the first half was unusually warm. Multiple days with highs in the mid 80s. Actually, a couple places in southern Illinois hit 90, and then the bottom fell out the last half of April. We had temperatures that were consistently 5 to 10 degrees below normal, and that's kind of how we started May too. But really, since then, I would say right around May 3rd, May 4th, we've switched back into a little bit of a warmer pattern. Not unusually warm. We've only been about a degree or two warmer than normal so far in May. But yeah, that was kind of April. And so the temperature pattern, and then April was sort of dry overall, especially for central Illinois. Parts of southern Illinois were wetter, but most of the states didn't get it was anywhere between maybe an inch to 2 inches drier than normal for the month of April. So kind of the temperature swings plus the dryness that kind of summarizes the month.
Yeah, and I was reading your update that you sent out. It was your April update. You summarized April, and then at the end, you kind of gave a little bit of a sneak preview into what could happen in May. We're halfway through May. Is that update kind of holding true?
No, not real. Well, I mean, partially, yeah. So that those updates, those outlooks, this is where I don't take responsibility for it. The Climate Prediction Center, so NOAA Climate Prediction Center puts out these outlooks to say, okay, it's getting to the end of April. What are we thinking about for the month of May? And they showed kind of the higher chances of below normal temperatures, and I believe it was, I got to go back to my thing, but I think it was near normal, if not slightly below normal precipitation. So kind of a cooler and drier pattern for the month of May. And actually that really hasn't come true either way. So Temperatures so far this month, they haven't been, like I mentioned, they haven't been extreme either way. They've been within a degree to 2 degrees of normal, statewide. So it hasn't been, it's not like the outlook said it was going to be cooler than normal and it was extremely warm or anything like that, but we have been a little bit on the warmer side. In reality, because it's May, when we're a degree or two above normal, it's just nice. It's just pleasant and mild. And as far as the drier than normal is concerned, some places have been drier than normal. Certainly parts of Western Illinois, East Central Illinois, and then up to the Chicagoland area, they've been drier than normal. But because we've had these kind of streaks of really strong storms that have moved through through the first 2 weeks of May, what we've seen is that some areas have gotten, anywhere between 8 and 10 inches of rain so far this month, which is more than twice normal, really anywhere. Thinking about places like the St. Louis Metro East, Springfield, parts of Livingston and Kankakee counties have gotten hit pretty hard with some intense rain. So it depends on where you are, really, and that's kind of the flavor of this time of the year for precipitation. But yeah, so far a little bit on the warmer side, mild is what I'd maybe call it, for May, and it's been hit or miss with precipitation.
Yeah, and you put out that like disclaimer with that it might not be true because you can never know when it comes to future what's going to happen weather-wise. But looking up into the summer, what are your predictions looking like? What kind of patterns are we seeing and can we might expect?
Yeah, so for the time being, what we've seen is the next week, kind of think about, well, next week all the way until we get into the kind of middle part of summer. The next week looks to be a bit drier and, again, on the milder side, of as far as temperatures are concerned. But then when we get out to the 2 week outlook, which really takes us through the month, through the end of the month of May, we begin to see some of that warm air that's been trapped in the western U.S. for a little while now begin to break out. And so our chances actually increase for above normal temperatures to end the month of May, and still seeing a little bit of signal of drier weather. It doesn't mean that it's going to be bone dry, but what this is showing this time of the year is that we're not going to see that really active storm track bringing us system after system after system. So more likely it'll be kind of the hit or miss as far as rain is concerned. Getting beyond that, of course, we get a bit more uncertain when it comes to the outlooks. But the most recent 3 month outlook that kind of includes June and July still paints us a little bit warmer and a little bit wetter than normal. So we'll kind of have to see how those different outlooks progress as we move from May into June. But at least for the month of May, the rest of the month of May, things are looking milder, if not slightly warmer than normal to wrap up the month, and also drier than normal. And so, when it comes to field activities, there should be plenty of opportunities for field work. And again, I say that with recognizing that there's still going to be chances of precipitation. There will still likely be some folks who pick up a lot of precipitation, but it's going to be hit or miss. And as we move into the summer, the outlooks are leaning a bit wetter than normal, and near to warmer than normal. So, right now things are looking pretty good. I mean, obviously there's the folks who've gotten more hail than they'd like, which they'd like none, and they got more than none, and some pretty wet conditions, but otherwise conditions are looking good. And if we can move into a June, July period where we're getting a good amount of rainfall, maybe slightly wetter than normal, and a good amount of growing degree day accumulation, we could have a good season on our hands. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, you started talking a little bit about that precipitation, dryness, and that was going to be my last question, was kind of looking at drought because that is a big deal, especially as we get into that growing season. We have 3 counties that are seeing moderate drought as of the last Illinois Drought Outlook map.
Yeah, so the U.S. Drought Monitor has Adams, Pike, and maybe was it Schuyler County? I can't remember. I have to go back to my U.S. Drought Monitor map, but definitely Adams and Pike counties have a good chunk of moderate drought right now. Yeah, we were hoping Missouri would keep drought on their side of the river, but they've shared it with us in Western Illinois, unfortunately. And so those areas have been behind on rainfall. Quincy, for example, had the second, I believe it was the second driest April on record, second or third driest April on record. So it was fairly dry there. They got less than 3/4 of an inch for the whole month, which is very rare to be that dry. And and like I said, it wasn't extremely warm, but it was warm enough to have enough evaporation that we saw some pretty big deterioration there. Now, this time of the year to be dry, and especially when looking at April to be dry, is not really a problem for agriculture necessarily. I mean, obviously it gets us out, we can do field work, that sort of thing, with the assumption that the rains finally come. We did get some improvement in conditions with some rainfall this last week. Some places picked up as much as 2 inches in that area, but a lot of folks only got maybe a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch. So, improvement as far as, in the last week, Quincy got more rain than they did the entire month of April, but we're still seeing those kind of lingering dry conditions. So yeah, and looking at the outlooks right now with kind of the drier than normal, although weak drier than normal, outlooks through the end of the month, it's not likely that we're going to significantly improve our outlook as far as drought's concerned. But if we can pick up rain here or there, I wouldn't expect much deterioration, especially with temperatures kind of staying on the mild side. We will want to see a bit of a wetter pattern out in Western Illinois once we move into June and temperatures start to ramp up. But for the time being, yeah, there's some areas in drought, some abnormal dryness out there too. But right now we're not really seeing too much of the impacts. And as long as the rains come as they typically do in June, we won't see any problems. Now, if we're talking, you and me are talking June 16th, and that area has only picked up about an inch of rain or so since then, and it's gotten warm, then we may be talking about some worsening drought conditions. But for right now, we're kind of on the edge. I think things are looking okay as long as we can get those rains, through the first couple weeks of June.
Well, Trent, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and it was nice to meet you.
It was nice to meet you as well. Again, that's Trent Ford. He is the Illinois State Climatologist on the WRAM Noon Ag Hour. I'm Kaylee Foster.